Hi, welcome back to the channel, everybody. And if you are here for the first time and you're seeing my face for the very first time, or you've seen a couple of my videos, there's a big red button that says subscribe, and I feel like that you should click that button because about 98% of y'all don't, and it would help me a ton. Now, if you don't feel like it, go on with your day, and I hope you genuinely have a great day. But it would mean the world to me. I love creating content for you, and if you want to leave a comment down below, I see every single comment, guys. And if you want to see a certain video or a team or anything you want to be talked about, I would love to make a video on it. So leave a comment down below, leave a like, do what you will, but it would mean the world to me if you can help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of this summer. And we are well on their way to potentially hitting that, and I think we can. But in today's video, I am going to be talking about the prospects coming out of college, going into the NBA. Now, it doesn't only have to be college because we have plenty of prospects in the G League Ignite team. But specifically in only today's video, I will be talking about 4 specific players. They're genuinely the top 4 prospects consensusly known around the nation in Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith Jr., and a guy named Jaden Ivy, who is a personal favorite of mine from Purdue. I think he's electric, but I'll talk about him once we get there. And this isn't going to be a mock draft. I want to make that very clear because it's so tough to do mock drafts for the NBA before the lottery because anything can happen at the lottery. We saw it with the Pelicans and Zion Williamson. Anybody can come out of nowhere and all of a sudden get a top 4 pick, and that can change everything. I want to specifically look at kind of the bottom tier teams and which player should land where on best fit. Like I'm saying from a perspective of what player is going to have the best chance to succeed with a certain team. And I have a hint for y'all. None of them are going to be the Orlando Magic. And if you're a Magic fan watching this, I hate to break it to you, but the prospects in this draft just do not fit y'all's timeline. Not saying they have a bad team, but when you have a lot of guards, what seems to be a lot of centers, and your best player right now, it seems to be their draft pick from the recent year, Wagner, is a wing. And I don't see Jabari Smith being a great fit because I have a different team that is a better fit with them. And if you are a Magic fan, please let me know, who do you want out of this draft if you guys were to say get a top 5 pick? I'm very curious on what the Orlando Magic are going to want to do. I haven't watched a lot of games. I'm a Western Conference fan. And to start off this video, we're going to talk about Chet Holmgren, a polarizing player when it comes to the college basketball world. Gonzaga has been a team that has been mostly hated on for a lot of teams because they are seen as a weaker team in a weaker conference, but they get a lot of hype and they're the number 1 team, number 1 seed, but they never reach a national championship title, with guys like Jalen Suggs and Drew Timme and Chet Holmgren all being stars on those teams. They have never reached a national title win. I'll say they got to the national title before, but they have never won one, which is a disappointment for that overall program, and they should go into a better conference. But we're not here to talk about Gonzaga. We're here to talk about the 7-foot, I believe 7', 7'1", 7'2", tall center who is a unicorn when it comes to NBA prospects, and a lot of people have been doubting him because of his frame, which is a fair thing to say when you see guys like Jalen Duren, another NBA prospect, who is much bigger, much more built for a athletic NBA big compared to Chet. Chet is very skinny for an NBA center, and so the concern with him is, will he get bodied in the NBA? But ironically, his best skill set is defense. His timing on the blocks and the steals in his hands are very active. When you watch him play defensively, he is much more than a Rudy Gobert or a Kristaps Porzingis, which Kristaps Porzingis is a lazy comparison for Chet Holmgren. If you call him just a special version of Kristaps, you're just wrong. He is much more than that. And you'll see what his strengths are and how they fit with the team that I'm about to pick, which is the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets are the best fit for Chet because they're not going to ask him to do a ton on the offensive end. And I think with the perspective of what the Rockets could potentially do in this offseason by moving off of Christian Wood. Now, I am a Rockets fan, and I have watched a lot of Rockets games this year and a lot of Rockets losses. And there's one common factor with many of these losses. The opposing team's big men always go for career highs in every statistical category. And that is more or less because Christian Wood is not a 5. He plays like a 3. He has some fantastic moments. I'm not saying Christian Wood is a bad basketball player. He has plenty of value, and I think a good team should trade for him because he has a lot of good value to a championship level team. But when he is asked to be the main defender as a backcourt, he will struggle. He does not switch well, and he does not protect the paint very well either. He does get bodied by bigger big men, and he does not play well in the post. He does have some good moments on the offensive end, but his IQ is not as fantastic when it comes to passing the ball, and he takes some risky shots, especially for a team that isn't trying to win, but he just will take possessions away from guys that should be shooting the ball, and he'll take contested jumpers, and I feel like Houston is looking for their next great big men. Now, in next year's draft, there is a #1 overall pick big man from France, but that's for another video for another day, and I feel that if Chet is on the board, the Houston Rockets need a defensive anchor, and Chet fits that perfectly. Not to mention, he can shoot the ball, so he's not limiting Jalen Green's paint points. Jalen Green works the best when he's able to have space to work. He has been a master of the mid-range of a recent. If you haven't seen my video on Jalen Green, ever since I have posted that, he's gone for 20 points a game because he's been able to master the mid-range and the pick and roll. And I think Chet is a good matchup with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. for pick and roll lobs or rolls to the basket or pick and pops. I know I just said pops, but it's okay, let me live. Anyways, and I think Chet has all the potential in the world to really develop into a really solid #2 for a championship level team. I don't think Chet's the guy that you want to be a #1 option, and Houston isn't going to ask him to do that. I think Houston's going to ask him to protect the paint and play really good defense on the perimeter, and it's almost like Houston's getting a second chance at Evan Mobley. Now they also get Jalen Green, which was a fantastic pick as well. I called it. I told y'all, trust in the Jalen Green process. But Chet is a guy that could fit perfectly with Houston. I could also see Detroit. I'm not saying they're the only option, but if I'm Houston, I'm looking at Paolo obviously as an option, but if I'm the GM, I'm looking heavily into Chet because I think that gives them the best chance to win right now and moving into the future, because Houston needs to start competing for a potential play-in spot and be that next Grizzlies level team to jump up and be a contender in the next coming years. Now we got a long way to go, folks. We got a couple more prospects, so I'm gonna speed run through some of the fits. Now towards the end, there is a certain player that is pretty much a match made in heaven in my opinion, so I won't be talking as much as with Jalen Green, but Chet Holmgren is a polarizing player, so a lot of people want me to talk about Jalen and how he would fit next to Chet. And also, I want to mention Sengun real quick. I think Sengun or Chet can work in a backcourt easily. Chet's enough of a shooter. Sengun's a much of a better passer, and I think they would work perfectly. I don't think that'd be much of a problem. I don't think it would clog up the paint. And you can also stagger the two, so let's get that out of the way. But I want to talk about Paolo Banchero and how the Detroit Pistons and Cade Cunningham would be a match made in heaven, in my opinion. The fast break with Paolo Banchero and Cade Cunningham would be ridiculous. Not to mention, Saddiq Bey has shown to be a fantastic three-point shooter, not alone a great scorer off the wing. And I think Paolo Banchero could fit right into that #4 slot with Isaiah Stewart and not have to be the #1 option. I think a lot of people overrate the fact that coming out of the draft, you have to be the #1 guy on these rebuilding teams. And I think being a strong #2 next to Cade Cunningham would be the perfect fit for Paolo Banchero. I think Paolo is going to have all the ability to be able to be a 15, 16, maybe 17 point per game scorer coming out of this class. And I think Paolo would get plenty of assists from Cade Cunningham, and it would also take a lot of the weight off of Cade's shoulders when it comes to playmaking and be able to create his own shots. Not to mention, I feel like Detroit and Dwayne Casey could stagger the two, and then you're getting consistent points on both ends of the floor. And I think Paolo Banchero has shown flashes of good defensive potential, which is something Detroit's going to need. And I think Detroit is also looking in a position to get best player available. And I think Paolo would be a fantastic fit with them. And I think Paolo could potentially be a Rookie of the Year candidate with Cade Cunningham on his team. And I think it's time for them to kind of move away from, I forget who the name of is, Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes is not going to be a good enough ball handler to take some of the weight off of Cade Cunningham, but Paolo Banchero is, and I think it'd be a match made in heaven between the two. And I think if they are able to get another guy maybe out of the draft or coming out of free agency to be a quick shooter 3-and-D guy and a solid center for them, I think the Detroit Pistons could be a dangerous team for a play-in next year. And that's not a crazy thing to say. In my opinion, I don't think it is. But I think Detroit is really setting themselves up to be a really good team next year as long as they make the right moves, and they have been. And I think their GM has done a fantastic job over the past couple of years. And that is assuming Jeremy Grant gets moved off of in this offseason. I think Paolo Banchero can fit what Jeremy Grant is doing and do a little bit more with a lot more potential. I just want to get that out of the way. Next up, the third prospect, and these aren't really in order. It kind of is on how much I would rather pick these guys, but we have Jabari Smith. And this one's really a match made in heaven, in my opinion. I know I've said that with all these guys, and these are just my opinions, but the Oklahoma City Thunder and Jabari Smith would be fantastic. I think that the fact that they have SGA and Josh Giddey passing to Jabari Smith, who is a shooter, he is a sniper, he's a 6'10" sniper. And I don't want Jabari Smith to end up going to the Magic or the Rockets or even the Pistons, because he's going to be asked to create his own shot. Now, I think the Pistons would work a little bit with Jabari Smith, but the problem with Jabari Smith and the biggest con when it comes to drafting him is he's not a guy that has the handles to make his own shot consistently right now. Now, he has all the tools and intangibles to do so, but right now his go-to move is really shooting over smaller defenders. Now, he's making them at a ridiculous rate, not a consistent rate, but he's taking some very tough shots and hitting them. And I think he has all the potential in the world to be in a slot where he's not going to be asked to really create all the time. Now, he's going to probably learn. I think Josh Giddey and SGA could create for him. And I don't know if he's going to be a guy that you're going to want to have as maybe your number one option. I know I said that with all these guys, but a lot of the teams at the very bottom have kind of picked their cornerstone guys. And I think Jabari Smith slotting into that 3 spot, or really 4 spot, with maybe Lou Dort, and then now you just have to figure out the number 5 with Darius Bazley. And they have plenty of interesting pieces on the Thunder. They have also plenty of draft picks. They could easily get another guy, maybe a Walker Kessler, and later in the draft. But I think Jabari Smith would be a magical fit right next to SGA and Josh Giddey with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think he could easily be a Rookie of the Year candidate just based off his shooting alone. And the last guy on the board for me is Jaden Ivy. And Jaden Ivy has freakish potential. And I think it would be interesting with a lot of these guys that I've already talked about when it comes to the teams. I think Jaden Ivy is really interesting because he's the number 1 guard, which is always a coveted position when it comes to coming out of the NBA draft. He reminds a ton of people of Ja Morant with his freakish athleticism and his ability to drive to the basket. And he's shown glimpses of fantastic shooting at times with Purdue. Now, for Jaden Ivy, it gets a little difficult to try to project which team is the best fit for him, because there's a lot of teams in here that already have their guard situation settled. Now, Jalen Green and him would be fantastic to watch. I think that backcourt would be disgusting, but they also have a lot of investment into KPJ potentially blossoming into a true point guard. You have Indiana with Halliburton, which I don't know if that would work too well, because the truth is with Jaden Ivy, you really need the guy to have the ball in his hands. And a team in the latter half of the draft board or the draft lottery that I think could have a revolutionary type of change is, I think the New York Knicks could be an interesting fit. And I don't really have a best fit for Jaden Ivy, honestly, with looking at what's there. I think the Pelicans could be a really good matchup with CJ McCollum, and I think that's the team I'm going to really stick with. I think the Pelicans with Jaden Ivy could be dangerous. You have a matchup with Zion, and I think that's a good enough matchup that you could bring Zion in and be a dominant team. You could have Valanciunas hit some threes. CJ McCollum is pretty damn good, not to mention Brandon Ingram, and you slot Jaden Ivy into that spot, put Devontae Graham at that 6-man, and then all of a sudden you get a dangerous playoff team, because they do have the Lakers pick this year, and that's slotted, I think, at 6 on the lottery boards. I think Jaden Ivy could be a guy that needs the ball in his hands, and I would take a lot of pressure off of CJ. And I think that would be a better backcourt mate than potentially Damian Lillard, because I think Jaden Ivy has defensive potential way better than Damian Lillard. And I'm not saying he's better than Damian Lillard. I want to get that out of the way right now. I don't want people to come with pitchforks and torches. I'm not saying Jaden Ivy is better than Damian Lillard. I'm saying that that could be a dangerous backcourt that could defensively be better than what they were doing in Portland, and I don't think Portland would be a good matchup either. Specifically, if Jabari Smith lands in Portland, I think that would be terrible for Jabari. I don't think that would be a good matchup whatsoever. But if you're at this point in the video, I know this is a longer video, but I like doing these NBA draft prospect talks. Thank you so much for watching. And like I said at the beginning of the video, please, if you are at this point in the video, you like the content just a little bit, just admit it, please leave a sub. Leave a like, leave a comment. It means the world to me. I really want to hit 1,000 by the end of this summer. And thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.